Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Fredrickson, and we have our second report of the year from your mayor, the mayor of Joliet, Robert Odekirk, Bob Odekirk. And again, thank you. By the
Good morning. How are
because
you?
we're doing this like at 5 o'clock in the morning because of his schedule. No, I'm kidding. But you have a schedule. Your secretary Sue squeezed us in here, and we're very appreciative of that. I've got a couple of questions here, and I'm going to kind of move quickly through them. I am, but you take your time in the answers. Okay. Exciting news. I mean, it was the governor here. We had the Will County executive here, but we had just a bunch of wonderful people gathering together just a few weeks ago, and the announcements were in the paper, but let's detail it a bit more, and that is the much thought of and sought of, and you talked about this not only at our last interview, but the interview that we did prior to that. You talked about you wanted to have a Hobart bridge, and you know there were people out there who were kind of rolling their eyes. Yeah, sure, right. Well, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen now. It is good news on a few different fronts. Before we get into the details of the bridge, I do want to say, I think myself, the county executive, the state legislators who involved the governor, I think we all realize that this is not going to solve the truck problem in Joliet. It's the first step towards solving the problem. We are still pushing to add lanes to I-80, to add lanes to I-55 to relieve some of the pressure and the congestion that's happening down there. But having said that, we've made the case. I've been to Washington several times. I've been to Springfield with the Chamber of Commerce, with the Center of Economic Development and John Gruling's team, saying that we know that we have one of the prime areas of economic growth in the entire state is happening right here in Joliet, in southern Joliet. But our infrastructure could not keep up with the growth that was happening there. So I thank Randy Blankenhorn and IDOT and Governor Rauner for listening to us and coming in. The details on the bridge, essentially, the state's going to give us $21 million to redo the Hobart Road interchange in a new interchange, and to redo the road from I-80 to Route 6. At that point, it's private investment led by CenterPoint that's going to build the bridge from Route 6 over the river into the CenterPoint Park. So we're looking at probably, I said $21 million from the state, probably somewhere between $150 and $170 million in private investment for this project. So I do think, I know I said at the press conference, it's good government. You have the city, the county, the state all working together, and it's good business because as it stands right now, Joliet taxpayers aren't looking to pay anything for this. If there are some overruns on the construction that we're responsible for, then we will pick up the tab for that. But we've also left it open with CenterPoint that we're going to be expecting to receive some of the toll money. So I think it's great news for Joliet. You're talking about 2 years of construction jobs that have come in, union jobs. And it is, again, I think, a big step towards getting the recognition that we need help here with the infrastructure.
Yeah. Did you get any pushback from any of the truckers about, will they pay those tolls?
I've heard it said that they're not going to, but they're not going to have a choice. Yeah. And without all the details haven't been ironed out, but I can assure you that CenterPoint and the other entities that are putting the money up, they're not going to put up $150 million if they're not
these guys
confident.
Going 53,
right. Yeah. There's some assurances that they're going to get their money
Plus,
back.
it's for a driver, for a company. Once you get the bridge up, they've all experienced what happens when you get to Route 53. You get to the viaduct, you come off of I-80, and it's a parking lot. And if you've gone out to the cemetery, or you're going out to on an Autobahn or Chicagoland Speedway, it's all trucks, and it's great. We love it, but it needs to be assisted, and that bridge will do some of that.
It does, and CenterPoint continues to grow. Obviously, Amazon and IKEA and the other companies that are coming in that are outside of the park are continuing to grow. So it's a problem. The problem is getting worse. And I'm really happy with the county and the state that we were able to work together to come up with a solution.
That's the way government should work. You mentioned Amazon and IKEA. Let's talk about that a little bit, and let's wave the flags. It goes again with your statement about the Will County, Joliet, being a leader. There's a lot of tough times out there, and many of you are experiencing some of that, but we're really positioned currently and in the future for great things to happen in Joliet.
I agree. I probably do a ribbon cutting once a week, but the Amazon one is the biggest yet. They'd already had made a commitment to Joliet, and they were bringing about 1,500 jobs. They've doubled their commitment, so there's another 2,000 jobs coming to Joliet. And I think one thing that needs to be considered with Amazon, when the logistic parks first opened, these logistic companies first came in, there was a lot of pushback from the community that they weren't good jobs. They were low-paying jobs. They weren't being paid benefits. The people were claiming they were being laid off prior to having benefits, being able to receive benefits. So the city, and I think, again, Center of Economic Development kind of pushed these companies, if you're going to come into our town, you're going to pay living wage jobs. Amazon is that. There's different level jobs all over the spectrum, but these are good paying jobs. They're offering insurance, they're offering matching 401k contributions for retirement. So I think it's something that really is, again, when you say wave the flag, we need to do it. These are good jobs that are coming into our city. On top of that, and I've talked about this publicly, the Joliet Junior College has set up a program for careers in logistics. Now, this is not warehouse jobs, but actual logistic careers. These jobs really didn't exist in our community 10 years ago. They're here now. So I would encourage anyone who's watching, if you know young people or people who are looking for work, get on the Amazon website, apply for these jobs, look at Joliet Junior College's program. There are careers that have come to Joliet, a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have XM Sirius Radio, and about every third commercial on there is for truck drivers. And the average, I think I'm anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 a year driving trucks. That's not shabby.
No, it's not.
That's not shabby.
It's not.
With Benny's along with it,
right.
too. So it's
I had an uncle who was a truck driver. Both his daughters won the Teamster Scholarship and went through college with on the Teamster Scholarship. So they are good jobs.
Yeah, they are good jobs. Let's continue with the economic development picture here. Joliet, any more? You're doing ribbon cuttings every day. Some of those ribbon cuttings are mom and pop individuals. Others are like Amazon. Anything that you've done recently or coming up in the future?
Well, I think the ones that we're really looking at in the future, besides the mom and pops, are the economic development downtown. We know the brew pub is moving forward. I'm excited about that. We have the old Crabbig Ale site is moving forward. There's some real major projects that we haven't announced yet that we've been working on. I went to lunch at the country club, Joliet Country Club, a couple weeks ago with some major retail developers that brought in CEOs of retail chains, high-end retail chains that are looking to come to Joliet. So we're really excited. And I would expect, I don't know in the next couple months, but certainly in the next 6 months or next year, you're going to hear about some more big developments that we hope are coming to Joliet, including talk about some major developments downtown.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've got it's either, by the time this is aired, it may be over with, but there was a closed auction, or will be a closed auction, on the Catholic Charities building, which is Ottawa to almost Joliet Street. I know that's happening, and there's an individual looking at buying some buildings down there downtown. It's a lot of things happening, and we get a lot of feedback, positive feedback from people coming to the events and kind of showcasing the downtown area. And again, to Joliet's positive side, I repeat this so often because there's a group of people out there who never go downtown. There are 25,000 people that come from all over the world to come through Route 66 to Joliet. And now, Mayor, I attended a meeting a few weeks ago about the Heritage Corridor, the Lincoln Way Highway. Right. You know, that'll be the second big tourist thing coming through Joliet. It just goes on and on.
It does. And I've heard a lot of real positive feedback about what's happening downtown. We put beat officers back into the downtown area to walk the patrol, and it seems like they've had a really good effect. The events, and again, we've asked City Center Partnership and other groups to step up, and they have. The Chamber of Commerce with the events that are happening downtown. Bicentennial Park is really rolling again. They had Waterway Days, they had the fireworks. So I do think there's a real synergy to what's happening downtown. I think the train station's been frustrating, that multimodal project. It is moving forward at a snail's pace. That isn't our fault. There's state money that has been withheld from the city, but it is moving forward. And I think I can tell you with the developers that we've talked to, they actually have talked about that project and the high-speed rail and the access to rail lines going to Chicago and identifying Joliet or downtown as an area they want to be because of that. So although I think a lot of people are frustrated, including me, at the pace of this project, I think when it's done, we're going to see the benefits for Joliet.
It's a shame we have to go through one more winter with those people waiting outside for trains, but once that's completed, that area with the ballpark, the train station, and I'm sure there'll be development to the east of that whole area as well. And when that whole thing with the buses and the cabs and the trains and the parking lot all gets finished, we're not talking a decade from now. We're talking just a couple of years. It'll be done.
I believe so. We are actively negotiating with the county to open up Chicago Street. Again, a lot of these things have been talked about for a long time, and I'm like the courthouse or the bridge or now Chicago Street. I'm happy to say it's happening in real time. We've also are talking about putting artificial turf on the ballpark, with the idea that it won't just be used for baseball in the summertime. We could play or have people on the field in the spring, in the fall, even in the winter. We talked about soccer, maybe have professional soccer, Mexican soccer league teams coming in. Jim Hawk, who comes from Michigan, talked about building an ice rink in the wintertime and having public skates or having minor league hockey playing outside at the ballpark. So there's a lot that could be done. And I'm happy to say we're not just talking about these things. We're actively moving towards doing these things. Another thing related to the Heritage Corridors, we're actively talking with the museum about taking ownership of the prison and opening up the prison for tours. So there's a lot. I talked about the synergy. There's a lot happening downtown, and I think moving forward, you're going to continue to see these things.
Once that's completed, we can make the prediction right here that'll be in the top 3 tourist attractions in the entire state. I would put that Navy Pier 1, probably maybe Starved Rock 2 or something like that. But if that takes place, Joliet will either be number 2 or number 3 as a tourist attraction in the state, because that's big time if you get that prison open.
Yeah, and I know our people at the front desk here in City Hall or at the museum will tell you they're constantly getting inquiries from people that want to get inside the prison or tour the prison. If you've seen, I know there's YouTube videos. It's been destroyed over the year by vandals. I think the idea would be to start rehabbing it, but taking it one sector at a time and using the money that's coming in to rehab the next one.
People would be tickled pink just to get to look inside the administrative building and maybe just look at the yard for a little bit, and then the next few years as that income comes in to do the next chapter of that prison. That's fantastic. You mentioned meeting with major retailers, and I remember you talking and we discussing this at our last meeting. The I-80 and I-55 area that was planned for future retail, is that coming along?
It's coming along. I could say that group, the Cullinan Group, myself and the city manager, Steve Jones, Jim Haller, the people that have worked with them are really impressed. These are top-notch professional people. And the blueprint, what they're looking to do in that area, I think would be unlike anything else in Joliet. It would be a destination for the entire area. So there's a lot of moving parts, and they'll make the announcements when they're ready to. But it is moving forward. I can tell you that group has invested a lot of their own money. And again, when you're dealing with smart people and money, I think they generally, they're not throwing it away. I think they expect to see a return for what they're doing.
Well, that'll be exciting also. It's another new retail center in the Joliet area. That will be not only Joliet, though, but that'll be a huge thing with the folks traveling from Iowa to wherever coming by Joliet, and then the I-55 corridor as well. Something new, I didn't see this in the newspaper, so perhaps or on JOL, I may have missed it, but you have the Vietnam War 50th commemoration coming to Joliet, or you already have it?
We have. The Department of Defense reached out to me and asked if Joliet would want to be a commemorative partner in the 50th anniversary. It's being celebrated nationwide. And I, of course, jumped at the opportunity, knowing all the veterans that we have in the military presence, and then, of course, Vietnam vets in town. So there's a committee that was formed. Wayne Horn, who is a Vietnam veteran, I believe he's airborne. Jan Quillman, Councilwoman Jan Quillman, whose husband was a Vietnam Marine veteran, and Jim Caparelli, who's a local attorney, who's a retired Army colonel, are on this committee, and they're putting together, there's going to be a number of events to commemorate the war. I know at the last couple council meetings, Councilwoman Quillman we've gotten documents signed by President Obama. We've gotten a plaque sent from Washington. So I think it's a great thing to honor those veterans. I think I'm happy that our city is taking some initiative and helping to do this.
Yeah.
there's talk about parades or bike rides or different things. I think it's going to be a nice event. There gonna be several that are going to happen in the next couple of years to commemorate this.
I'll have to knock on the door of Wayne Horn and Councilman Quillman and see a little bit more of what's happening in that area. I mentioned earlier to you about the Inspector General. Maybe we can link it in with the revamped legal department, or that whole area that had been mentioned at the city council meetings. Progress on that?
Yeah, it's still a work in progress. One thing that we're trying to do, and we're actually working with the police department, changing some of the ordinances. Ultimately, we're going to want to see a lot of the misdemeanor prosecutions happen here at the local level. Other communities do it. Certainly, City of Chicago does it, but all around us, Bolingbrook does it, Plainfield, New Lenox, Frankfurt, where the cities are keeping the bulk of the fines. And this is not for serious criminal offenses, but for traffic offenses or minor offenses. So we're moving towards that. I think you're going to see the revenue for the city go up significantly as opposed to giving it away. And again, we're not remaking the wheel. Other towns all around us are doing it. I think Joliet was lagging.
Well, what's the current? What is currently happening when you get a fine?
Well, everything is held at the courthouse. We're looking ultimately to have once or twice a month they have a branch court here in Joliet. There's a judge in Will County who does nothing but go from branch court to branch court all over the county. Again, they'll do it in Frankfurt. They'll do it in not Naperville. Right now, even the Will County part of Naperville is done in DuPage County. But that judge is on the road. He travels 5 days a week. And
they're in Plainfield, too, aren't they?
In Plainfield, yeah. Friday afternoons in Plainfield.
Yeah.
The idea is to have that happen here in Joliet. And we think we know it's going to increase the local revenue. The Inspector General, I think, has worked out really well. Again, it's a work in progress. We're halfway through the year. But I expect at the end of the year, besides he tackled the Evergreen report, which I think is still on our website. There's been other internal matters that he's handled. One thing that we saw right away and I expected to see, was that the overtime that we're paying out, and individuals here who may have been abusing sick time or may have been abusing, saying that they were injured when they weren't, that really has been decreased dramatically. And I think at the end of the year, we're going to have the numbers to show that we had in one department, there were 18 people on disability. Within a month or two of the Inspector General being hired, 15 of them came back to work.
It's almost like going to Lourdes. They all got healed real quick.
Yeah. Well, and having said that, I think we have excellent employees here. But when you're dealing with 800 employees, there's always going to be some people that try to game the system a little bit. So I think internally, I think it's been a great mechanism. I think city staff would agree, and I think again at the end of the year we're going to have some numbers to justify that.
The city finances kind of all tied into that. You're in pretty good shape, aren't you?
We're doing well, knock on wood. Last year, I don't have the numbers, but so I'll estimate. Last year, we were looking at, I think, an $8 million deficit in 2015, and we ended up $5 million in the black, which is good. Again, good business. The city was run well last year. This year, we entered the year with, I think, a $5.5 or $6 million projected deficit. We received a report at the council meeting last week, and I think we're $1.6 million on the positive side right now. So we're doing well. I know permits are up. I know housing starts are up. I think the economy is doing better. It seemed like the housing market in Joliet has lagged a little bit behind the rest of the country, but it's moving forward, and we actually have developers now coming and talking about building new housing. So the economy in Joliet, knock on wood, but right now we are doing well.
Yeah, it's been good. The whole Chicagoland area is kind of lagging in the housing arena. I saw in the Wall Street Journal where they were saying it's just now like beginning to increase. They were doing real well with condos and apartments, and now the rooftops are beginning to turn around. I was going to say this for last, but I'm going to do something else for last.
Okay.
Give us an overview of what in the world is happening with the Rialto Theater. Or should I do it last?
No, we can do it. It's I'm probably not as optimistic as I am with the other things we've talked about. The Rialto's difficult for us because we don't own the theater, we don't control the theater. I think a lot of people think we do, so they look to the city to solve the problem with the Rialto. We have been its biggest supporter over the years. We gave $600,000 last year. We've given at least $600,000 for years. I think the number in the last 20 or 25 years, I think the city's given $15 or $20 million to the Rialto. But in any case, going back to what happened last fall, when they came to the city council at the budget meetings to again ask for the contribution they've been getting from the city, there was one councilman, Larry Hugg, that was outspoken about cutting the contribution off. And if you remember, it became very contentious with Mr. Hugg and Randy Green, the general manager. What we found out after the fact, about February or March, Dan Vera, who had taken over as the president of the board, came forward. To his credit, Dan Vera came forward and informed us that there had been a problem with the finances, that the Rialto hadn't paid their taxes. What was troubling to me in the city council, I think I could speak for the council, was that people knew in November that they weren't paying their payroll taxes and they never bothered to tell us. And to a degree, Larry Hugg got beat up in the media for the things he was saying. All the while, there were people on that Rialto, and I don't want to guess who knew what, but people knew that they were in big trouble financially. It's illegal not to pay your payroll taxes. And they still came in front of us and took our money and never were straight with us about the financial condition of the theater. So, Mr. Vera came forward. We have worked with him or tried to work with him. Ultimately, that board right now is not really listening to the city at all. They're doing what they think is best. Without getting into specifics, there's several areas that we haven't agreed on, things that we thought should have happened or should have happened a lot sooner than they're happening now. So the theater, it's open in name only, but I think there's 3 shows booked for the rest of the year, and I may be wrong. But
a couple of movies, I think
right.
they have in there.
It's not what we want it to be. It's in downtown Joliet. It's central to the redevelopment of downtown and what we're trying to do down there. We talk about opening up Chicago Street. We talk about the other restaurants and brew pubs that are coming in. We talk about creating a city square right across the street. That's going to be our dollars doing that. We want the theater active. I've met with people who are bidding to take control of the theater that are talking about bringing in 150 or 200 shows a year. From the city's perspective, that's what we want to see there. Can you imagine 4 shows a week at the Rialto Theater?
I can imagine the reaction and the response, because I see them on a daily basis. The current businesses that are in downtown Joliet, they rely, significant reliance on shows at the Rialto Theater to go through, instead of breaking even, to make some profit.
Right.
And that Rialto is not only the jewel, but it is a revenue maker. And someone told me, I asked them about the Rialto, and I said, is it dark? Or, that's what they say when the theater is dark. And they said, no, it's on a dimmer. I guess that's true. They still have the Tuesday tours, and they're doing some weddings, and they have some movies. So there's some activity going on. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, they've got the next meeting or the meeting after, they've got like 5 different proposals now, from Harrah's all the way down to Anestas is still in there. And anyway, they've got 5 people that they're looking at, and hopefully moving along to make a decision.
I hope so. Going back to February, March, when Dan Vera came in, I at the time was somewhat positive, saying you have a chance to do it right now. So, I think it's imperative that they get it right. For all of last year, for 2015, they had 49 shows at the Rialto. We believe they can do better, and I think they can do better. So I do think there's some consensus on what we want to see the theater do. It's been frustrating, though, because we really are spectators in this, and there's not much we can do.
And one thing about an older building, and that is an older building, it's got to keep going. It's got to keep moving, because things get little things, furnace and air conditioning and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Starts to just stop.
Right.
One more, and we're going to wrap this up. Maybe we'll do. I'll find something on a positive note.
Sure.
You mentioned it earlier. Anything happening in Evergreen Terrace? Anything happening on those countersuits? You're still going through that?
Yeah, the latest update, we won the appeal. I'm not sure if that happened between now and the last taping. We have won the appeal, which we anticipated we were going to do. They filed a motion to reconsider. That was denied.
Right.
So I do think the litigation is probably over. I think the other side's saying it isn't. They may try to appeal this to the Supreme Court. Our legal counsel has told us that the Supreme Court will most likely not hear this case. They've heard a similar case very recently. They don't anticipate they would take this one up. So there still is, I think, one pending lawsuit. There was a whole array of litigation, and the Inspector General report actually detailed what was there. For the most part, the litigation's over. We still are in a position, it's a little frustrating for the city, that we are, even though we've paid the money, we've won the lawsuit, we won the appeal, we've paid the money, we do not have control of the buildings. HUD is still blocking the city from taking over the buildings. So we are actively working with HUD to try to make that happen. I spoke with the city manager yesterday on that issue, and we're hoping in the fall we actually get into the buildings. When we do, then we'll be able to assess what we're going to do moving forward. Because we really have flown blind to this point. I know there's ideas about tearing buildings down and redevelopment, but it was all speculation back when it was said. There is no plan. There never was a plan. I presented, after I got elected a year ago, I presented plans to the council. Most of them were rejected out of hand. They had a $100 million price tag to it to do something there, which is never going to happen. So, we have to decide what we're going to do, but we really can't until we get inside those buildings and see what kind of revenue is generated, what does it cost to run the buildings, are there capital improvements that need to happen within the buildings, and then ultimately what happens if we decide to try to redevelop some of the site. I don't think under any circumstances, and I know this is probably going to disappoint people in Joliet because they were told otherwise, I don't think you're going to see Evergreen Terrace torn down. I think there's going to be a significant presence there for at least 20 years, because that's what the court orders tell us we have to do. If we were to tear all of it down, I don't know how we'd pay for it, but we would have to build 115 units of Section 8 housing in a different part of the city. So I don't think that's realistic financially or even from a policy basis. I don't think that's going to happen. So hopefully we get HUD's approval, we get in there in the fall, and then we can start deciding exactly what we want to do with that property.
Good. The Housing Authority of Joliet really doing a great job. I look forward to talking with them in the near future, and I will also be remiss if I didn't do this. I know you're probably going to a retirement party, but Jim Haller, congratulations on your many years of service to the city. And as we wrap things up with the mayor, he doesn't know I'm going to ask him this, but I'm going to do it right at because it's a more positive thing. I don't want to end up with Evergreen Terrace and the Rialto. It's early on yet, and you still have a few more years to go, but what's your goal? What in terms of when they say, Mayor Bob Odenkirk was mayor from this year to this year and that year, what do you think they'll say about you?
Well, what I hope they'll say, what I think I'm most proud of a year into it, is that between the courthouse and the bridge and some of the other things, projects that have been on the books for a long time or were languishing, I think myself and this city council, and the council deserves credit, but as a team, we were able to come in and kickstart and get these things moving.
Yeah.
The downtown redevelopment's been talked about for years. The new courthouse has been talked about for years. That Hobolt Road was talked about for years. It's funny what you said earlier. The first speech I gave after I was elected mayor was at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and I talked then a year ago, last June, about the Hobolt Road and we need to get this done. The Herald News reporter came up and was laughing at me after the speech, and basically said, "This has been talked about for 10 years and no one could get it done. Why do you think you can get it done?" So,
and we both know who that is.
Yes, we do. So, but I think the point is, and again, the credit shouldn't go to one person. The city council is working well, and that's what I hope people would say, that we were able to get the city moving, and good ideas that had languished are now coming to fruition.
And I can also echo this sentiment that since I'm working with the Joliet City Center Partnership, I have a lot of relationships with a lot of staff members here at the city. And boy, I tell you, your tax money is going to hardworking people here at the city of Joliet. And that is for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great. Good
Yes.
conversation. I can't wait till our next one so we find out a bit more, and there'll be a lot more to share with you between this interview and the one coming up later on this fall. And of course, stay tuned to JOL, the Herald News, Shaw Media, and social media, and they've got a great, I don't know how often that comes out, that newsletter, that nice, slick.
4 times a year.
4 times a year. I don't know how many cities do this, but it's a great one. And thank you so much for letting us come into your homes and offices today. I'm Richard Fredrickson. This is Profiles, Channel 6 special, just for you.